Hey everyone, my name is McKenna, also known as Sylphic Studios, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I'm bringing you yet again another doll customizing video. So today we'll be making my second commission from my most recent batch that I've been working through. And she is definitely really different from my previous Taylor Swift doll that I'd uploaded, so I'm really excited to show you guys what she looks like. So without further ado, this is Chiller the Skeleton. She is my commissioner's Undertale original character. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love Undertale, so I just had to make her. And she has a relatively simple design. She just has a pink scruffy haircut, a pink shirt, black basketball shorts, and then brown boots. So if you guys are interested in making a custom doll, this could be a relatively simple outfit or hair project for you to start out with. This video definitely isn't a tutorial by any means, but I highly recommend if you guys are interested in starting out customizing, starting with a project that's more simple like this. So with all that being said, let's get into the doll customizing, starting with prepping. So for this custom, since she is a skeleton, I had to use Skeleta, like that's just the obvious choice. And I was pretty excited to work on this doll because I rarely get to work on G1 Monster High. I prefer to work on G3, and I've hardly ever worked on any G1 dolls, so this was a really fun change of pace for me. The only other G1 style dolls I've used in the past were like the newer gen G1 style, so the Wednesday doll and then the newer Holiday Draculaura Valentine's Day doll. So this was like the first proper like old G1 style doll that I've gotten to work on, so I was pretty excited about it. But that excitement quickly went away whenever I had to actually start removing her hair because let me tell you, it was nasty. With the newer dolls, they just burn the plugs in there to seal them, but with the older dolls, they used glue, and you know, the notorious glue seepage is always an issue, so this one had a lot of that, and it was just absolutely disgusting. Like, you'll see whenever I start pulling out the actual hair, like, it was so hard to get out, and it was just all gross and sticky and gooey, and ugh, it was so gross. Like, the glue kept, like, sticking my pliers together, and it was so hard to get out. Like, I had to literally, like do that to get it out. It was pissing me off. Like, even her head itself felt gross because of all the glue seepage, so I kept having to wash her with soap and water, and it was just not a good time. So I definitely prefer the new method that they do with the burning because it's not as nasty as this. And not to mention, this also took way longer than the G3 dolls, so I am not a fan of the glue. This is what her head looked like finally after I took out all of that hair. It took forever. So now that that was done and I washed her with soap and water again, I'm just removing her face with some 100% acetone. And before I removed her face, I had absolutely no idea that Skeleta had such like a pronounced face mold, like her eyes are very, very sculpted. So when it came to sketching her face, I didn't have too much freedom with where I could place her eyes and everything, but I really love how she came out in the end. I also removed her scalp paint. I didn't really have to do this. I could have just painted over it, but it's fine. Now it's time to get into her face up. So this is Skeleta's sculpt all naked. As you can see, her features are very pronounced, so it was pretty easy to figure out where to map out her eyes and all of that. So I sealed her with Mr. Super Clear off camera, and now I'm just going in with my mechanical pencil to sketch out her eyes and all of her features. And I personally like to do both sides like at the same time just to keep the symmetry as close as possible. I know that a lot of other people like to do one side completely and then also mirror it on the other once it's completely done. It's completely up to you what your personal preference is, but I like to work on both simultaneously so that everything looks even. And this was her finished face sketch. I did end up erasing the lips because my commissioner said that Chiller doesn't wear any lipstick or anything, so I removed that, and then this was what her eyes were looking like once the eyeliner was painted. And since she's a skeleton and like her scaleras, her eyes are basically black, in order to keep a difference between the eyeliner and her actual eyes, I filled them in with black pastel so that the eyeliner was a little bit darker, so that you can still differentiate between her actual eyeball and her eyeliner. And this is how Chiller's finished face up is looking. I really love how she turned out. I think the contrast in her eyes is super striking, and I love how her eyes look. So after I gave her a final seal of MSC, I'm just taking my high gloss varnish and glossing her eyes. I did 2 more coats of that off camera just to make sure they were super shiny, and now it's time to get into her hair. So in Chiller's reference images, she has pretty bright pink hair, but my commissioner actually told me that her hair, like lore-wise, has changed to like a more pale pink. So I mixed up this pale pink color and I'm just painting her scalp to match her yarn. I did a couple more coats of that off camera just until it was opaque enough, and then I sealed it with MSC. So to color match her hair, I couldn't find an exact match, so I found this dusty, like rosy pink yarn and then this kind of brighter pink, cooler colored yarn, so I mixed them together. And I feel like mixed together it gives the perfect tone of the hair that I needed. I will be making a yarn weft tutorial soon, so I won't be going into too much detail here, but basically I'm just wrapping it around a long kind of smooth surface so I can get even pieces of this yarn. I'm using like a clear acrylic like paint palette, but you can use a piece of cardboard, like a back of like a doll box, just basically anything that you can wrap them around smoothly like this, and then I'm cutting them to get these long pieces of yarn. Once my yarn was all cut, it was time to actually tie the wefts. So I have a crochet hook that I tied 2 rubber bands around the end of just so that the yarn doesn't come off. Some people use like wire frames, like just anything that you can tie knots around and keep them sturdy on there. And I'm just taking 2 strands of yarn from each color, so 4 total, and just tying it around the crochet hook in a knot like this. And I do this until the entire crochet hook is filled. 1 hook's worth of wefts is definitely not enough for a full head of hair, so I recommend maybe making 3 or 4 of these total, just so that you know that you have enough wefts. So once all my strands were tied, it looked like this, so now it's time to actually brush everything out, and I use a wire pet brush. You can get one of these basically anywhere, like in the pet section. The bristles on these are just really good to brush out yarn itself, and also regular doll hair, so I recommend getting one of these if you don't have one already. And I am just starting at the bottom and working my way up to avoid any yarn breakage. I'm just flipping it back and forth to make sure that both sides are getting brushed out evenly. Your brush is going to fill up with a lot of extra lint, so just throw that to the side. You can use that for stuffing, for pillows or doll clothes or whatever, or you can just throw it out. So once everything was brushed out, it looked like this, and now it's time to actually flat iron the hair. So I have this really tiny flat iron that I got from Amazon. It works perfectly for yarn wefts and doll hair. And I am just taking it and ironing it from the top down and just doing this for every single piece to make sure that everything is straightened. I also like to brush it out in between to make sure it's as smooth as possible. And I know, I'm sorry, this is out of frame. Don't kill me, guys. Put the gun down. But to make the actual wefts, I'm just putting down a lot of Mod Podge, cutting off one of the knots, and then sandwiching it between another layer of Mod Podge to make the actual wefts to glue it all down. I don't know if that makes sense, so here you can kind of see it better. I put down Mod Podge, put it down as evenly as I can, and then I just put more Mod Podge on top to glue it together. And I usually leave this overnight or for a lot of hours until it's completely dry. And this is what they looked like when they were all done. For this doll, I actually took those wefts, cut them in half, and then made more. Like right here, you can see right here, I made tinier wefts out of the rest. I usually wouldn't do this because it thins out the hair, but this character has a really short haircut and it's really scruffy and it needs layers, so I figured this would be perfect to make the most out of my yarn. I couldn't do the actual hairstyling and hair gluing on camera, but this is what she was looking like when about half of her wefts were done. I had to make more, so always make sure you make more than you need. So with her hair done, it's clothing time. So for the shirt pattern, I actually used the same pattern that I use for my Alice dresses. It's from Delightful. It's just for a simple dress. I'll link it in the description below. And I just feel like the bodice of this dress is just super, like, it just gives me t-shirt vibes, so that's why I used it. And even though I am using the G1 standard size, since Skelita is a skeleton and she's kind of smaller, I had to alter this a little bit, so it is a little bit big. I am not very good at explaining what I'm doing when it comes to sewing, so I will try my best. So to start, I am just pinning the front panel to the back panels, and I'm sewing the shoulders together, wrong sides together, so whenever you flip it out later, the right side of the fabric is on the outside. And once those were attached, I'm just taking my Fabri-Tac and hemming all of the edges on the shirt, so the collar, the bottom hem, and where the Velcro will go later, on the back. I attached the cuffs of these sleeves off camera, so now it's time for me to actually attach the sleeves to the shirt, and this part is always super difficult for me, so I do it off camera. I apologize, guys. Sleeves will literally be the death of me one day, I swear. But anyway, this is what it was looking like afterwards, so this is it pinned together so I can sew up the sides and the sleeves. And then this is her finished shirt on my finger. I didn't want to reveal it on the doll just yet, but that is what it looked like, and now we're working on her shorts. And I will say, I did have to remake these shorts in a bigger size, so these shorts were a little bit too small, so if you decide to make these shorts, make sure you make them a little bit bigger. But I essentially just drew out my pattern, and I'm just hemming the bottoms and the tops of these shorts with Fabri-Tac glue, and then sewing the pant legs together. I attached those off camera, and now I have a little pair of basketball shorts. And with her main clothing pieces done, it's time to sculpt her shoes. So for her shoes, since she is a G1 doll, I couldn't find any secondhand G1 like combat boots really, so I found this pair of G1 shoes. I don't know what they're from. I'm assuming it's some sort of Frankie doll because of the lightning bolt heel. So in order to fix that heel and make them more like boots, I just took some epoxy sculpt and I'm just sculpting around the lightning bolt to cover that up and to form it more into like a platform style boot. Before I worked on this doll and then one of my next commissions, I haven't really gotten the chance to do a lot of sculpting work, so this is one of my first like shoe modifications, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Epoxy sculpt can be pretty hard to work with, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. It's a little bit tough to figure out at first. So once both boots were sculpted and dry, I sanded them off camera and then sealed them with some Mr. Super Clear to prime them for the layers of paint. I didn't have any reference pictures for these boots, I just know that she has brown boots, so I kind of had to figure out the design for them. So I just painted them this nice brown color, and then I painted the bottoms of the boots and then the little accents on them like a darker brown. And then I also painted the little zipper a silver color as well. These were the boots once they were all finished being painted. I love how these boots turned out for it being my first like kind of shoe modification. And then this was them completely done after they were sealed with Mod Podge. So with her shoes all done, that means that all that was left to do was her hairstyling, so I did that off camera. And now I present to you Chiller. I had such a fun time making Chiller for my commissioner, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. I'm sorry about the last footage, I completely forgot to record horizontal like reveal footage for her, so I figured I'd also add some of the photos that I took of her as well to the end so you can get a better look at her. But yeah, I think that she turned out absolutely adorable, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed. I will have another video for my third commission up next week, so please keep a lookout for that. My goal now that I am doing this full time is to have a video up per week going forward, so I'm going to try my best to get that done. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and a big thank you to all my patrons over on my Patreon, Pumpkin Tushy, Morgan, and Samuel. Thank you all so much for supporting me over there. I love you so much. If you'd like to keep up with me, I am super active over on my Instagram, so I highly recommend following me over there. I'll have all that linked in the description. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!